Marcus and Sophia Jefferson had everything most people dreamed of, but anyone passing them on the street would never know it. The couple lived by a simple rule: let success speak through actions, not appearances. On this bright Tuesday morning, they sat in their modest kitchen, sipping coffee from their favorite mismatched mugs, just like they had done for the past 10 years of their marriage. Marcus, wearing his usual plain black t-shirt and jeans, scrolled through his phone while Sophia finished up a work call. The morning sun streamed through their kitchen window, highlighting the gray streaks in Marcus's temples, earned from years of late nights coding and building his software company from scratch. He had started in his garage with just a laptop and a dream, and now, at 38, he had just sold his company for $50 million. That was the last business call for the week, Sophia announced, placing her phone face down on the kitchen counter. She adjusted her simple pearl earrings, a wedding gift from Marcus 10 years ago. At 35, Sophia had her own success story, having built the marketing division of Marcus's company from the ground up. "So, what's the surprise you've been hinting at all week?" Marcus smiled, his dark eyes twinkling with excitement. "Well, we've been driving that Honda Civic for 8 years now. Don't you think it's time for an upgrade?" He reached across the counter and took his wife's hand. "Happy early anniversary, honey. Let's go car shopping." Sophia's eyes widened. In all their years together, even after the business started taking off, they had stuck to practical vehicles. It wasn't that they couldn't afford luxury. They had just always agreed that flashy displays of wealth weren't their style. "Are you serious? What happened to a car is just transportation," she teased, mimicking his usual response whenever she pointed out a fancy car on the street. 10 years of marriage deserves something special," Marcus replied, his usual reserved demeanor softening. "Plus, after selling the company, maybe it's time to enjoy a little of what we've earned." "Just a little," he added with a knowing smile. As they finished their coffee, memories of their journey flooded back. They had met at a tech conference where Sophia was handling the marketing arrangements. Marcus had been one of the speakers, talking about his then small software company. He had impressed her not with his success, but with how he helped an elderly janitor fix his phone during the lunch break, missing half his meal in the process. Their love story had blossomed alongside their business. Through the tough early years, they had supported each other, eaten countless meals of instant noodles, and worked late into the night. Success hadn't come easily. They had faced skepticism, rejection, and sometimes outright discrimination as a black couple in the tech industry. But they had persevered, letting their work speak for itself. Later that morning, as they got ready to leave, Marcus grabbed his worn leather wallet, the same one he'd had since college. Sophia opted for a simple blouse and slacks, her natural hair styled elegantly. They could have worn designer clothes and flashy jewelry, but that wasn't who they were. Their wealth was in their achievements, their partnership, and their principles. "Which dealership are we heading to?" Sophia asked as they stepped out of their modest 3-bedroom house. The neighborhood was nice but not extravagant. They had chosen it for its good schools and strong community feel. "Elite Motors," Marcus replied, helping her into their reliable old Civic. "I heard they have the best luxury cars in Beverly Hills." "Elite Motors?" Sophia raised an eyebrow. That's quite a jump from Honda. She knew the dealership by reputation. It was where celebrities and tech billionaires bought their vehicles. The kind of place where prices weren't listed because, as the saying went, if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. Marcus shrugged, that familiar humble smile playing on his lips. "Well, we've worked hard for 10 years. I think we can at least take a look." What he didn't mention was the recent business deal he'd made, one that would make this visit to Elite Motors particularly interesting. As they drove through the Los Angeles traffic in their faithful old Honda, neither Marcus nor Sophia could have predicted how their simple car shopping trip would turn into something much more significant. They were about to learn that sometimes the best lessons in life come from unexpected places, and true class has nothing to do with the car you drive or the clothes you wear. The pristine glass walls of Elite Motors gleamed in the California sun as Marcus pulled their Honda Civic into the dealership's parking lot. The contrast was stark. Their modest sedan looked out of place among the shimmering line of luxury vehicles that cost more than many homes. Through the spotless windows, dozens of cars in various shades of elegance stood like silent sentinels, their polished surfaces reflecting the morning light. As Marcus and Sophia stepped out of their car, they took a moment to straighten their clothes. Around them, Other customers were arriving in vehicles that matched the dealership's prestigious reputation, a sleek Porsche here, a gleaming Mercedes there. A young white couple emerged from a BMW, the woman's designer handbag matching her shoes perfectly, and walked toward the entrance. "After you, my dear," Marcus said, holding the heavy glass door open for Sophia. The cool air conditioning hit them as they entered, along with the subtle scent of leather and new cars. The showroom was a testament to luxury, with marble floors so polished they could see their reflections. Soft, classical music played through hidden speakers, creating an atmosphere of sophistication. 3 salespeople stood at their pristine desks, all wearing perfectly tailored suits. The moment the BMW couple entered just behind Marcus and Sophia, one of the salespeople practically leaped to attention. "Welcome to Elite Motors," he called out, but his trajectory made it clear he wasn't speaking to the Jeffersons. He smoothly sidestepped them, extending his hand to the white couple instead. Marcus and Sophia exchanged a knowing look. They'd been here before, many times in their lives. They moved to the side, examining a sleek black sedan while waiting to be acknowledged. Sophia ran her hand along the car's smooth surface, admiring its lines while keeping one eye on the sales floor. Another customer entered, this time a middle-aged white man in golf attire. Immediately, the second salesperson rushed to greet him, leaving only one salesperson at the desk. This last salesperson seemed more interested in his computer screen than in the black couple standing in his showroom. "The craftsmanship is impressive," Marcus commented loudly enough to be heard, his voice carrying the educated tone of someone who understood quality. Still, no one came to assist them. They watched as the BMW couple was offered espresso from a high-end coffee machine in the corner. The man in golf attire was already sitting at a desk, being shown color swatches for his potential purchase. 15 minutes passed, then 30. Sophia checked her watch. They'd been standing there for 45 minutes. During that time, 2 more white customers had entered and received immediate attention. One had even been offered a test drive within minutes of arrival. "Should we say something?" Sophia whispered to Marcus, frustration evident in her voice despite her calm exterior. She dealt with this kind of treatment before in high-end stores, but it never stopped being infuriating. "Let's give them a little more rope," Marcus replied quietly, a subtle smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He had a glint in his eye that Sophia recognized, the same look he got when he was about to close a major business deal. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, a young salesperson approached them. He was clearly the newest member of the team, judging by his slightly ill-fitting suit and nervous demeanor. His name tag read Tyler, and he looked like he'd drawn the short straw. "Can I, help you folks?" Tyler asked, his tone suggesting he'd rather be anywhere else. His eyes darted to the Honda Civic visible through the window, and his expression became even more dismissive. "Yes," Marcus replied pleasantly, gesturing to the most expensive car in the showroom, a limited edition model with a price tag north of $300,000. "We'd like to test drive that one." Tyler's laugh was automatic and condescending. "Sir, this is a very exclusive vehicle. We have some, requirements before we can arrange test drives. Perhaps something more appropriate?" His eyes drifted meaningfully toward the dealership's most basic model. Around them, the other salespeople weren't even pretending not to watch anymore. The BMW couple was signing papers, sending occasional glances their way. The man in golf clothes actually snickered. Sophia felt her cheeks burn, not from embarrassment but from anger. She opened her mouth to speak, but Marcus touched her arm gently. His expression was calm, but she could see the steel in his eyes. After 10 years of marriage, she knew that look well. It was the same one he'd worn just before he closed the biggest deal of his career. The stage was set for what would become a very interesting morning at Elite Motors. Tyler, the junior salesperson, shifted uncomfortably from foot to foot as he faced Marcus and Sophia. His fingers nervously adjusted his crooked tie while he tried to find the most polite way to discourage them from staying in the dealership. "Sir, for vehicles in this price range," Tyler began, emphasizing the words as if speaking to children, "we require proof of income and ability to purchase. It's company policy." He glanced hopefully toward the door, clearly wishing they would take the hint and leave. Marcus maintained his calm demeanor, though Sophia noticed his jaw tighten slightly, a subtle tell she'd learned to recognize over their years together. Interesting policy, Marcus said smoothly. I don't recall seeing the couple over there showing any documentation before their test drive. He nodded toward a pair of customers who were already sitting in a luxury sedan, receiving an explanation of its features. Tyler's face flushed red. Well, you see, we know their family. They're regular customers. The lie was obvious, considering how the other salesperson had asked for their names when they first walked in. A few feet away, other staff members were watching the exchange with barely concealed amusement. Then let me make this easier for everyone, Marcus said, reaching for his phone. Would you like to see my bank statements now? His voice remained level, but there was an edge to it that made Tyler take a small step backward. Before Tyler could respond, a heavy-set man in an expensive suit emerged from a back office. His gold name tag identified him as Richard Warner, sales manager. He walked toward them with the confident stride of someone used to handling difficult situations. Is there a problem here? Richard asked, directing his question to Tyler while barely glancing at Marcus and Sophia. His tone suggested that he already knew what the problem was and was ready to solve it by showing them the door. No problem at all, Marcus replied before Tyler could speak. Your colleague was just explaining your unique policy requiring proof of income from select customers before test drives. The emphasis on select wasn't lost on anyone within earshot. Richard's practiced smile didn't reach his eyes. Sir, you have to understand, these vehicles represent significant investments. We need to ensure that potential buyers are qualified. He paused, looking pointedly at their casual attire. Perhaps I can direct you to our certified pre-owned section, or there's a very good Honda dealership just a few miles away. Sophia felt her blood boiling. She'd faced discrimination before, but the sheer audacity of their behavior was shocking. She opened her designer handbag, modest but worth more than Tyler's monthly salary, and began to reach for her business cards. Marcus gently touched her arm, stopping her. He smiled. There was the kind of smile that had made business competitors nervous during negotiations. Mr. Warner, I'm curious, does your dealership have an official policy document outlining these special requirements? I'd very much like to see it. The sales manager's smile faltered slightly. Sir, I don't have to show you our internal policies. Now, if you're not seriously interested in purchasing. Oh, but I am seriously interested, Marcus interrupted, his voice taking on the tone he used in board meetings. I'm interested in several things right now. I'm interested in why the last 6 customers who walked in were offered test drives without documentation. I'm interested in why your staff has been watching us stand here for nearly an hour without assistance. But most of all, he paused, reaching for his phone again. I'm interested in making a call that I think will fascinate everyone in this room. Richard's face darkened. Sir, if you're going to make threats. Threats? Marcus raised an eyebrow. No threats, just a phone call. He began scrolling through his contacts, his movements deliberate and unhurried. You see, Mr. Warner, I believe in giving people a chance to correct their mistakes before things become complicated. The atmosphere in the showroom had changed. The other customers were openly watching now, some with discomfort, others with curiosity. The sales staff had stopped pretending to work, their eyes fixed on the unfolding scene. Tyler, still standing awkwardly to the side, looked like he wanted to disappear into the expensive carpet. Even Richard seemed less certain, his eyes darting between Marcus's phone and his calm expression. One phone call, Marcus said softly, his finger hovering over the screen. Unless, of course, you'd like to reconsider your position on that test drive. The next few moments would change everything at Elite Motors, though none of them knew it yet. Richard Warner's face had turned an interesting shade of red as he watched Marcus holding his phone. The sales manager's previous confidence was cracking like thin ice under spring sun. Behind him, Tyler kept looking between his boss and the couple, as if watching a tennis match where nobody knew where the ball would land next. Now, see here, Richard began, his voice carrying a slight tremor. There's no need to make this into something it's not. We have procedures. Procedures. Sophia interrupted, her patience finally wearing thin. Like the procedure of offering champagne to the couple who just walked in. She gestured toward a new pair of customers who were indeed being offered flutes of sparkling wine by another salesperson. The other customers watched the scene with growing discomfort, some even having the decency to look embarrassed. Marcus kept his finger hovering over his phone. Mr. Warner, While you're thinking about those procedures, let me share something interesting with you. My wife and I have been here for exactly. He checked his watch, 57 minutes now. In that time, we've watched 8 other customers receive immediate attention. 7 test drives were arranged. 5 people were offered drinks, and exactly 0 of those customers were asked for proof of income. The showroom had grown so quiet that the soft classical music playing in the background suddenly seemed too loud. A young saleswoman near the back quickly turned it down, as if the music itself was embarrassed to be part of the scene. Richard tugged at his collar, which suddenly seemed too tight. Well, you have to understand our position. We get all sorts of people walking in here. He stopped abruptly, realizing how that sounded. All sorts of people? Sophia's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. Please, Mr. Warner, do explain what you mean by all sorts of people. Her legal background from years of handling contracts for their tech company was showing through. She had that look she got just before destroying someone's poorly thought-out argument in a business meeting. Tyler, still hovering nearby, looked like he wanted the gleaming marble floor to open up and swallow him whole. He kept glancing at the Honda Civic parked outside, then at Marcus's phone, then at his boss, connecting dots that were starting to form a very uncomfortable picture. A new customer walked in, another wealthy-looking white man in an expensive suit. Automatically, one of the salespeople started to move toward him, but froze mid-step when Marcus raised an eyebrow in their direction. The salesperson quickly retreated back to their desk, leaving the new customer standing confused at the entrance. Mr. Warner, Marcus said calmly, I'm going to make that call now, but before I do, I want you to know something. He lowered his phone slightly and looked the sales manager directly in the eyes. This didn't have to go this way. All we wanted was to be treated with the same respect you've shown every other customer who walked through those doors today. Richard's face had progressed from red to an almost ghostly pale. Something in Marcus's calm demeanor had finally pierced through his prejudices, triggering a dawning sense of dread. Perhaps we could start over, he offered weakly. I think we're well past that point, Sophia replied, her voice cool and professional. She'd seen that look many times before, a moment when someone realized they'd made a terrible mistake in underestimating them. Marcus nodded and began to dial. The sound of each number being pressed seemed to echo through the showroom. Everyone watched, frozen in place, as he raised the phone to his ear. Even the customers who had been signing papers had stopped to watch the drama unfold. Hello, Marcus spoke into the phone, his voice clear and confident. This is Marcus Jefferson. Yes, I need to speak with Sarah immediately. He paused, listening. Yes, I'll hold. Richard's eyes widened at the name Jefferson. Tyler, who had been nervously scrolling through something on his phone, suddenly gasped audibly. He turned his phone screen toward his boss, showing him something that made Richard's face lose what little color it had left. The classical music continued to play softly in the background, an ironic soundtrack to the tension filling the showroom. In just a few moments, everyone at Elite Motors was about to learn a valuable lesson about judging books by their covers, and about who really owned the very ground they were standing on. Less than 5 minutes after Marcus's phone call, the atmosphere in Elite Motors changed dramatically. The sound of clicking heels echoed through the showroom as Sarah Chen, the regional director of operations, burst through the rear entrance. She was a sharp-looking woman in her 40s, wearing a perfectly tailored suit and an expression that could freeze fire. Every employee in the showroom straightened up as she walked in. Richard Warner's face went from pale to practically transparent when he saw her. Tyler, the junior salesperson, looked like he might faint. Sarah's reputation preceded her. She wasn't known for making unexpected visits unless something was seriously wrong. Mr. and Mrs. Jefferson, Sarah called out, her voice warm but professional. I sincerely apologize for coming in through the back, but I came as quickly as I could. She walked directly to Marcus and Sophia, completely ignoring Richard and Tyler for the moment. I trust you haven't been treated with the respect you deserve. Richard's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Miss Chen, we didn't know. Sarah held up one hand, silencing him without even looking in his direction. Mr. Jefferson, I cannot express how embarrassed we are about this situation. She turned to face the staff, her expression hardening. Would someone like to explain why our majority shareholder and his wife were left standing in the showroom for an hour? The word shareholder hit the room like a thunderbolt. Tyler dropped the tablet he was holding, its protective case making a loud clatter on the marble floor. Other salespeople froze in place, their faces showing various stages of shock and horror. The customers who had been watching the scene unfold began whispering among themselves. Majority shareholder? Richard repeated weakly, his legs seeming to wobble beneath him. He grabbed the edge of a nearby desk for support. Yes, Mr. Warner, Sarah said coolly. Marcus Jefferson's investment firm acquired a controlling interest in our parent company 6 months ago. This information was in last quarter's corporate newsletter, which I assume you didn't bother to read. The other customers in the showroom were now openly staring. The couple who had been treated to champagne earlier looked embarrassed, the man actually hiding his glass behind his back. The new customer who had walked in during the confrontation was recording everything on his phone, much to Richard's visible distress. I assure you, Mr. Jefferson, Sarah continued, turning back to Marcus and Sophia, this type of behavior is completely unacceptable and does not reflect our company's values. Marcus nodded thoughtfully, maintaining his calm demeanor. Interesting that you say that, Ms. Chen. My wife and I have been observing quite a pattern of behavior this morning. He gestured around the showroom. Would you like to hear about the different treatment we witnessed between customers? Sarah pulled out a small notebook. Please tell me everything. And I mean everything. Her pen was poised, ready to take notes. Behind her, Richard looked like he was about to be sick. Sophia stepped forward, her legal training evident in her precise recall. In the past hour, we observed 8 different customers enter the dealership. Would you like me to break down how each of them was treated differently from us? The other salespeople had gathered in a nervous cluster, as far from Richard and Tyler as they could get while still being able to hear everything. The whispers had stopped. Everyone was listening intently now. Mrs. Jefferson, Sarah said, her pen moving across the notebook. Please continue. I want every detail documented. As Sophia began recounting the events of the morning, Marcus watched the staff's reactions. Some looked genuinely ashamed, others worried about their jobs, and a few seemed angry, though whether at themselves or their management wasn't clear. Tyler, who had finally retrieved his tablet from the floor, stood awkwardly to the side, his earlier condescension replaced by visible regret. He kept glancing at Marcus and Sophia as if seeing them for the first time. Sarah finished writing and looked up at Marcus. Mr. Jefferson, how would you like to proceed with this situation? Marcus shared a meaningful look with Sophia before responding. They had faced discrimination many times before, but this time they were in a position to do more than just walk away. This time, they could actually make changes that mattered. The next words out of Marcus's mouth would determine the fate of everyone in that showroom, and potentially change the culture of Elite Motors forever. Marcus looked around the showroom, taking in every nervous face before speaking. The power to fire everyone in the room rested in his next few words, and everyone knew it. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Ms. Chen, Marcus began, his voice measured and thoughtful. I believe we have an opportunity here. He paused, letting his words sink in. Richard Warner's shoulders sagged with relief. Firing wasn't the first word out of Marcus's mouth. Tyler, still clutching his tablet like a shield, stopped holding his breath. An opportunity? Sarah asked, her pen ready to capture every word. Sophia stepped closer to her husband, recognizing the look in his eyes. The same one he'd had when he turned their struggling startup into a $1-million company. It was his problem-solving look. Yes, an opportunity, Marcus continued. What happened here today isn't unique to Elite Motors. It happens in high-end stores, restaurants, and businesses across the country every day. He gestured around the showroom. The difference is, today we can actually do something about it. Sarah nodded, understanding beginning to dawn on her face. What do you propose, Mr. Jefferson? Rather than firing everyone involved, Marcus said, causing several staff members to flinch, I want to make Elite Motors a model for change. He turned to face the staff directly. This dealership is going to become the flagship location for a new corporate initiative on inclusive customer service. Richard Warner's face showed a mix of confusion and relief. Tyler, who had been sure his career was over, looked up with cautious hope. Starting next week, Marcus continued, every employee in this dealership will undergo comprehensive diversity and inclusion training. Not just a one-day seminar, but a real program with ongoing education and evaluation. He turned to Sarah. I want this to be mandatory for all our dealerships nationwide. Sophia stepped forward. And we're not stopping there, she added. We'll implement mystery shopper programs specifically designed to test for bias in customer service. Regular evaluations, customer feedback systems, and clear consequences for discriminatory behavior. The other customers in the showroom had stopped pretending to look at cars and were openly listening. Some were nodding in approval. The man who had been recording on his phone was still filming, a smile spreading across his face. Mr. Warner, Marcus said, causing the sales manager to stand straighter. You have two choices. You can either be part of this change, leading by example and helping to transform this industry, or you can tender your resignation. The same goes for everyone in this room. Richard swallowed hard before speaking. Mr. Jefferson, I would like to be part of the change. His voice cracked slightly. What happened today opened my eyes. I'm truly sorry. Tyler stepped forward, his tablet finally lowered. I'd like to learn and do better too, he said quietly. I made assumptions today that I'm not proud of. Sarah was writing furiously in her notebook. Mr. Jefferson, this is brilliant. We can make this a cornerstone of our corporate identity, real change, not just lip service. Marcus nodded. Exactly. And to ensure we're serious about this, I want 10% of every employee's annual bonus tied to their participation and improvement in this initiative. He looked around the room. This isn't punishment. It's an investment in being better. The tension in the room began to shift to something else. Hope, perhaps, or the beginning of understanding. Several staff members were nodding, some even looking eager to begin. One more thing, Sophia added, her legal mind at work. We need to document everything that happened here today, not to shame anyone, but to use as a teaching tool. Sometimes the best lessons come from real examples. Sarah checked her watch. I can have HR start drafting the new policies this afternoon. How soon would you like to begin the training program? Marcus smiled, but it was a serious smile. Immediately. Change doesn't wait for convenient timing. He turned to Richard. Mr. Warner, I believe I was interested in test driving a car. Richard blinked in surprise, then straightened his tie. Yes, sir. Right away, sir. Any model you'd like to see. As Richard hurried to get the keys, the other employees began to disperse, talking quietly among themselves. The atmosphere had changed. What had started as a potential disaster was transforming into something unexpected, a chance for real change. Marcus and Sophia exchanged a knowing look. Sometimes the best way to fight discrimination wasn't with anger, but with opportunity. They were about to turn an ugly incident into a powerful force for good. 6 months had passed since the incident at Elite Motors, and the dealership had undergone a remarkable transformation. The showroom looked the same on the outside, still gleaming with luxury vehicles and marble floors. The atmosphere inside had changed completely. Marcus and Sophia stood at the back of the training room, watching as Richard Warner led a diversity awareness session with a new group of employees. The same man who had once tried to turn them away was now passionately explaining the importance of treating every customer with equal respect. Remember, Richard was saying, using their story as an example, we're not just selling cars here, we're creating experiences. Every person who walks through those doors deserves the same excellent service. His words carried the weight of someone who had learned this lesson the hard way. The training program they had implemented had become a model for the entire luxury car industry. Other dealerships were now calling Elite Motors, asking to learn more about their inclusive customer service approach. Sarah Chen had been promoted to National Director of Corporate Culture, overseeing the rollout of similar programs across all their locations. Tyler, the junior salesperson who had first approached them that day, had surprised everyone by becoming one of the most enthusiastic supporters of the changes. He now ran the Mystery Shopper program, coordinating regular tests to ensure all customers receive equal treatment regardless of their appearance or background. The numbers don't lie, Sarah said, walking up to Marcus and Sophia with a tablet in hand. Customer satisfaction is up 47% across all demographics. Sales have increased by 35%, and employee retention has never been better. She scrolled through more data. Other dealerships are reporting similar results after implementing our program. The training room was full of faces from all backgrounds, a stark contrast to the homogeneous staff of 6 months ago. Elite Motors had made a concentrated effort to diversify its workforce, ensuring their team better reflected their customer base. "Watch this," Sophia whispered to Marcus, pointing to a scene unfolding in the showroom. A young black couple had just walked in, dressed casually and looking somewhat uncertain. 3 salespeople immediately approached them, offering genuine smiles and assistance. Within minutes, the couple was being offered coffee and shown to the vehicle they were interested in. Richard finished his presentation and joined them at the back of the room. "Mr. and Mrs. Jefferson," he said, his manner both respectful and much more relaxed than their first meeting. "We're having our monthly review tomorrow. Would you like to sit in? The team has some new ideas for expanding the program." Marcus nodded, pleased to see how far things had come. The monthly reviews had been his idea, a way to ensure the changes weren't just superficial. Every employee, from the cleaning staff to the management, participated in these sessions, sharing experiences and suggesting improvements. "Did you see the article in Business Weekly?" Sarah asked, pulling it up on her tablet. The headline read, "Elite Motors leads the way in inclusive luxury retail, a model for change." The article detailed how their program had sparked a movement in the luxury retail sector, with other high-end businesses following their lead. Outside the training room, the showroom buzzed with activity. Customers of all backgrounds moved freely through the space, receiving equal attention and respect. The classical music still played softly in the background, but now it felt less like a barrier and more like a welcome. "You know," Tyler said, joining the group with his ever-present tablet, "yesterday I had a customer ask me specifically about our inclusion program. She said she chose us over other dealerships because of our reputation for equal treatment." He smiled proudly. That would never have happened 6 months ago. Sophia checked her watch. They had a meeting with other luxury retail CEOs later that day. Several high-end brands had reached out, wanting to learn from Elite Motors' example. What had started as an uncomfortable confrontation was spreading into a wider movement for change in the luxury retail world. "Time to go," she said to Marcus. "We don't want to be late for the CEO roundtable." As they walked toward the exit, employees and customers alike nodded in recognition. The respect they received now wasn't based on their ownership of the company. It was the same respect every customer received, exactly as it should be. Richard walked them to their car, ironically, the same model they had wanted to test drive that first day. "You know," he said, "that day you walked in, it changed more than just our dealership. It changed all of us." Marcus and Sophia shared a knowing look. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest moments, and the worst situations can lead to the best outcomes. Elite Motors had become more than just a luxury car dealership. It had become a blueprint for change. 1 year had passed since that memorable day at Elite Motors. The dealership was hosting a special anniversary event, but it wasn't to celebrate sales records or profit margins. Instead, they were marking 1 year of their revolutionary inclusion program, and the showroom was packed with people from across the automotive industry. Marcus and Sophia stood near the podium, listening as Sarah Chen presented the year's results to the assembled crowd. The audience included executives from other luxury brands, journalists, and even a few civil rights leaders. Among them sat every employee who had been present that fateful day, including Richard Warner and Tyler. "In just 1 year," Sarah announced, her voice filled with pride, "Elite Motors has trained over 5,000 employees across the country. Our customer satisfaction rates are at an all-time high, and our sales have increased by 52%. She clicked to the next slide. "But more importantly, we changed the culture of luxury retail." In the front row, Richard nodded. He had become something of a celebrity in the industry, frequently giving talks about his personal journey from bias to awareness. His story of transformation had become a powerful teaching tool, showing others that real change was possible. Tyler, now promoted to Customer Experience Director, stood up to share his part of the story. "A year ago, I was that rookie salesperson who made all the wrong assumptions," he admitted to the crowd. "Today, I train others to see past their biases. We've helped 20 other luxury dealerships implement similar programs." The presentation screen showed photographs from the past year, diverse teams of employees working together, customers from all backgrounds being treated with respect, training sessions in progress. But the most powerful image was a side-by-side comparison of their staff photos, before and after the change. Sophia leaned over to whisper to Marcus, "Remember when we just wanted to buy a car?" They both smiled, knowing how that simple desire had sparked a movement much bigger than themselves. After the presentations, Richard approached the Jeffersons with an envelope. "Mr. and Mrs. Jefferson, I've been wanting to give you this for a while." Inside was his original letter of resignation from that first day, never submitted. "I almost quit out of shame, but you gave me a chance to be better. Thank you." The event had drawn media attention, with several news crews covering the story. A reporter approached Marcus with a microphone. "Mr. Jefferson, you could have simply fired everyone that day. Why did you choose this path instead?" Marcus thought for a moment before answering. "Because firing people doesn't change minds. Education does. Understanding does. And sometimes, people just need a chance to learn and grow." His words would later be quoted in business schools across the country. As the formal presentations ended, the showroom transformed into a networking space. Executives from other luxury brands were eagerly discussing how to implement similar programs in their businesses. A group of young salespeople from various dealerships huddled around Tyler, taking notes as he explained their mystery shopper program. Sarah joined Marcus and Sophia, tablet in hand as always. "You'll be pleased to know that 3 more major luxury brands are adopting our training program next month," she reported. "And the State Dealer Association wants to make it part of their licensing requirements." The celebration continued into the evening, but the most meaningful moment came when a young black couple walked into the showroom, clearly unaware of the event taking place. Without missing a beat, Richard personally greeted them, offered them refreshments, and began showing them vehicles, treating them with the same respect he now showed every customer. Sophia nudged Marcus, pointing to the scene. "Look at that. No hesitation, no assumptions, just good service." Marcus watched as other dealership employees naturally moved to assist other customers who wandered in, regardless of their appearance or dress. The changes they'd implemented weren't just policies anymore, they had become natural behavior. As the evening wound down, Marcus and Sophia prepared to leave in their luxury car, the same model they wanted to test drive that first day. But before they left, they took one last look at the showroom. The space that had once been a site of discrimination had transformed into a model of inclusion. "You know what the best part is?" Sophia said as they walked to their car. "This is just the beginning." Marcus nodded, knowing she was right. What had started as an uncomfortable confrontation in a car dealership had grown into a movement that was changing the face of luxury retail. Sometimes the biggest changes in society start with the smallest moments, and the worst situations can lead to the best outcomes. Elite Motors had become more than just a luxury car dealership. It had become a symbol of hope and change.